Hello, my good friends. How are you today? May God bless you all. I will not introduce anything. You guys watch the video and feel it. Then let's evaluate together. The autumn air in Boston's Roxbury neighborhood buzzed with life, thick with the scent of roasted chestnuts and the pulse of soul music drifting from a street festival. Neon lights, purple, pink, and gold, danced across the cobblestone paths of the sweet Auburn market, where vendors hawked handmade jewelry and food trucks served up fried plantains. The crowd swayed to a cover of Aretha Franklin's Respect the Bass thumping like a heartbeat. At the heart of it all stood Clara Bennett, a 40-year-old black woman whose presence was as magnetic as the music. Her curls bounced under the lights as she arranged a bouquet of jasmine and lavender at her soul blossom flower stall, her hands moving with the rhythm of someone who'd spent a lifetime turning chaos into beauty. Clara's stall was a riot of color dahlias, roses, and her signature black daisies, each bouquet inspired by the poetry of Audre Lorde, whose words she'd recite to anyone who'd listen. Tonight, she was more than a florist. She was a performer, weaving through the crowd with a microphone, her voice rich and warm, as she delivered a poem about love and resilience. Her burnt orange sweater hugged her curves, and her smile bright as the festival lights drew eyes from every corner. Clara was Roxbury's own, a daughter of soul and struggle running Soul Blossom to honor her late mother's legacy while fighting to keep the shop afloat. Across the market, Elliot Harper stuck out like a glitch in the code. A 42-year-old CEO of a Seattle-based medical tech company, he was in Boston for a conference, his navy blazer and scarf tied with questionable skill, thanks to a YouTube tutorial screaming outsider. His glasses slipped down his nose as he navigated the crowd, clutching a to-go coffee from a chain shop that felt wrong in the sea of local flavor. Elliot was used to boardrooms, not street festivals, but his assistant had insisted he experience Boston before flying back. Now he was regretting it. The noise, the lights, the sheer life of it all overwhelmed him. He needed a plan, a script, something to make sense of this chaos. That's when it happened. Clara, mid-performance, spun toward her stall to grab a bouquet for a customer, her poem still flowing like a river. Elliot, distracted by a text about quarterly reports, didn't see her coming. Their shoulders collided, and the bouquet jasmine woven with red maple leaves tumbled to the ground, petals scattering like confetti. The crowd gasped, but Clara's laugh cut through the noise, sharp and warm like a note from a saxophone. "Man, you owe me a new bouquet," she said, kneeling to gather the flowers. Her eyes, dark and sparkling, flicked up to meet his, and Elliot froze his coffee, nearly slipping from his hand. He wasn't used to eyes like that. Eyes that seemed to see right through his carefully coded exterior. I'm so sorry," he stammered, dropping to his knees beside her. His fingers fumbled over the petals brushing against hers, and a jolt ran through him like a spark in a circuit. Her skin was warm, her nails painted a deep burgundy, and the scent of jasmine clung to her, mixing with the festival's smoky air. For a moment, the world narrowed to just them, the music fading to a distant hum. Clara tilted her head, her curls catching the purple neon light. "You're not from around here, are you?" she teased, her voice low, almost conspiratorial. Got that Lost in the Matrix vibe. Elliot blushed, pushing up his glasses. "Seattle. I'm not great with crowds. Or flowers, apparently." She laughed again, the sound wrapping around him like a melody. "Well, Seattle, you just ruined my VIP order. Gotta make it up to me." Before he could respond, she stood pulling him up with her, her grip firm but gentle. The crowd parted as she led him to her stall, still holding the microphone. "What's your name?" "Flower Killer. Elliot." "Elliot Harper," he said, his voice barely audible over the music. He felt like he was debugging a program in real time, every line of code, failing Elliot Harper. She repeated, her smile mischievous. "Stick around, and maybe I'll forgive you." She handed him a black daisy, her fingers lingering on his for a heartbeat longer than necessary. The touch sent a shiver through him, and he wondered if she felt it too. The festival swirled on, but Elliot couldn't tear his eyes away from Clara. She moved like she owned the night, joking with customers, reciting poetry, her voice weaving stories of love and loss. When she caught him staring, she winked, and he nearly dropped his coffee again. He needed to leave back to his hotel, his laptop, his predictable life, but his feet wouldn't move. An hour later, as the crowd thinned and the music slowed to a sultry cover of Etta James at last, Clara found him lingering near her stall. "Still here, Harper?" she asked, leaning against the counter, her sweater slipping slightly off one shoulder. The neon lights painted her skin in shades of gold, and Elliot's throat went dry. "I didn't want to miss the rest of your poem," he lied, clutching the daisy like a lifeline. "Uh-huh," she said, stepping closer. The air between them crackled, charged like a summer storm. "You know, in Roxbury, we don't let folks off easy for ruining flowers. Gotta pay a price." "Name it," he said, surprising himself with the boldness. His heart pounded, drowning out the music. Clara's eyes gleamed with something daring. Before he could process it, she closed the distance, her hand cupping his jaw, and kissed him. It was quick electric, her lips soft and warm, tasting faintly of jasmine and sweet tea. The world tilted, the neon lights blurring into a kaleidoscope, the bass of the music pulsing through his veins. Her breath brushed his cheek as she pulled back her smile, both playful and vulnerable. "That's for the flowers," she whispered, her voice a low hum that sent heat curling through him. "Don't make a habit of breaking my stuff." Harper Elliot stood frozen, his lips tingling, his brain short-circuiting. I won't," he managed, his face burning. The crowd cheered, thinking it was part of the show. But for Elliot, it was a seismic shift, a line of code he couldn't debug. Clara laughed, stepping back to her stall, but her eyes lingered on him. A question unspoken. Elliot stumbled away, the daisy still in his hand, her kiss etched into his memory like a song he couldn't stop humming. The next morning, Elliot sat in a sleek Boston hotel room, his laptop open, but his mind was still at the festival, replaying that kiss. He was supposed to be preparing for the Harper family reunion in Charleston, a 3-day ordeal of aunts, cousins, and his mother's relentless matchmaking. Margaret Harper had already threatened to set him up with a friend's daughter who loved knitting. Elliot shuddered. At 42, he could write software that saved lives, but navigating his family's expectations, that was a puzzle he couldn't solve. His sister Sarah's email subject line, "Don't let mom swipe right for you," mocked him from the screen. He needed a plan, not a girlfriend, something to get him through the reunion without losing his sanity. That's when he found it. Soul Blossom events, a side hustle. Clara ran offering companions for social functions. No strings, just vibes. Her profile was a burst of warmth. Clara Bennett, florist and poet. I bring flowers, soul, and the ability to charm any room. P.S. I can talk poetry or plants if your family gets nosy. Her photo showed her laughing, curls, wild eyes, sparkling, like they held a secret. It was her, the woman who'd kissed him and turned his world upside down. Elliot hesitated, his finger hovering over the contact button. Hiring. Clara was logical, professional, a transaction, but the memory of her lips, her jasmine scent, made it feel like something else entirely. He typed a message, brief and formal, proposing a 3-day gig as his fake girlfriend. The pay was generous enough to make it worth her while. He hit send, his heart racing, like he'd just launched a new app. An hour later, his phone buzzed. Clara's reply was classic. Her, Harper, you're full of surprises. Fake girlfriend, huh? Meet me at the Blue Note in Roxbury tonight. We'll talk terms and maybe work on your dance moves. Don't be late. She signed it with a winking emoji, and Elliot's stomach flipped. The Blue Note was a dimly lit bar, its walls lined with vinyl records and photos of soul legends. The air smelled of whiskey and cedar, and a live band played a slow, sultry cover of B.B. King's "The Thrill Is Gone." Clara was already there, leaning against the bar, in a deep green dress that hugged her figure, her curls loose and glowing under the soft lights. She sipped a drink, her eyes scanning the room until they landed on him. That smile, God, that smile, hit him like a punch. "Harper, you clean up nice," she said, eyeing his blazer and scarf still tied wrong. "But that scarf, we're fixing that later." Elliot blushed, sliding onto the stool beside her. "I thought we were here to talk business." "Oh, we are," she said, her voice teasing. "But business can be fun." She slid a napkin with her terms scribbled in loopy handwriting. 3 days in Charleston. Full girlfriend act. No funny stuff. I need the cash to keep Soul Blossom afloat. Deal. She leaned closer, her jasmine perfume wrapping around him, and added, "One condition, you gotta loosen up. No scripts, no algorithms. Just vibe with me." Elliot knotted his throat tight. "Deal. But I'm warning you, my family's intense. Mom's got a sixth sense for lies, and my cousin Jake's obsessed with Instagram." Clara laughed, the sound like a bell in the smoky air. "I've handled worse. Now come on." She grabbed his hand, pulling him to the dance floor as the band shifted to a slower tune. "If we're gonna sell this, you need to move like you mean it." "I don't dance," he protested, but her grip was unrelenting. She placed his hands on her waist, her body swaying to the rhythm, and Elliot's world narrowed to the heat of her skin through the thin fabric of her dress. The lights dimmed, casting her in a halo of gold, and her breath brushed his ear as she whispered, "Feel the music. Harper, let it lead." Her hips moved against his slow and deliberate, and Elliot's pulse skyrocketed. Her hands slid up his arms, resting on his shoulders, and the scent of jasmine mixed with the whiskey on her breath. Their eyes locked, and for a moment, he forgot this was a transaction. The music pulsed the bass, vibrating through them, and Clara's lips curved into a smile that felt like a secret just for him. "You're not half bad," she murmured, her voice low, sending a shiver down his spine. Her fingers brushed the back of his neck, lingering, and Elliot's hands tightened on her waist, pulling her closer. The space between them vanished, their breaths mingling, and he wondered what it would be like to kiss her again. Not as a penalty, but because he wanted to. The song ended, snapping him back to reality. Clara stepped back, her smile playful, but her eyes searching. "Not bad for a tech guy," she said, leading him back to the bar. "We'll make this work in Charleston. Meet me at Logan Airport in 2 days. Don't forget my Daisy." Elliot nodded, his heart still racing. As she walked away, her dress swaying with every step, he realized he was in trouble. This wasn't just a deal. Clara Bennett was rewriting his code line by line, and he wasn't sure he wanted to stop her. Elliot sat in his hotel room that night, the black daisy on his desk, its petals soft under his fingers. He opened his laptop, searching how to act natural at family reunions, but all he could see was Clara, her curls, her laugh, the way her lips felt against his. He told himself this was business, a 3-day gig, nothing more. But as he packed for Charleston, the jasmine scent lingered in his mind, and for the first time in years, Elliot Harper felt alive. If you're hooked on Elliot and Clara's unexpected spark, hit that subscribe button and share your thoughts in the comments. Join us to see where their story leads. Will it stay a deal or become something real? Don't miss out. The Seattle morning was crisp, the kind that carried the tang of salt from Puget Sound, and the faint hum of a city waking up. Pike Place Market buzzed with early risers vendors, tossing fish baristas, steaming milk, and tourists snapping photos of the iconic neon sign. Elliot Harper sat at a corner table in a coffee shop overlooking the water, his laptop open but untouched, his scarf still tied with the awkward knot of a YouTube tutorial gone wrong, felt like a neon sign of its own. Outsider here, his glasses fogged slightly from the steam of his latte, but his mind was 2,000 miles away back in Boston, replaying Clara Bennett's kiss under the Roxbury lights. That kiss, quick, bold tasting of jasmine and sweet tea, had rewritten his code. For 2 days he'd tried to debug it to convince himself it was just a moment, a glitch. But the black daisy she'd given him sat on his hotel nightstand, its petals a reminder of her laugh, her warmth, her everything. Hiring her as his fake girlfriend for the Harper family reunion in Charleston was supposed to be a transaction. 3 days, no strings, just a shield against his mother's matchmaking. But Clara was no shield. She was a spark, and Elliot wasn't sure he could handle the fire. His phone buzzed, snapping him back. A text from Clara. At SeaTac Gate C12. Don't make me wait. Harper P.S. Bring coffee. Black, no sugar. Her words, even in text, carried that teasing lilt, and Elliot's lips twitched into a smile. He grabbed a to-go cup for her paid, and headed to the airport. His heart doing that annoying thing where it beat faster than his smartwatch could track. SeaTac was a maze of hurried travelers and overhead announcements, but Clara was impossible to miss. She stood near the gate, her curls loose under a knit beanie, wearing a deep burgundy coat that made her glow against the sterile airport lights. A worn backpack slung over one shoulder had a jasmine stem tucked into a side pocket, and her suitcase sported a sticker of Audre Lorde's face with the quote, "I am deliberate and afraid of nothing." She was scrolling her phone, lips pursed, but when she saw Elliot, her face lit up, and that smile. God, that smile hit him like a system reboot. "Harper, you're punctual," she said, taking the coffee with a mock salute. "Didn't think tech guys knew how to show up on time. I run a company," he said, pushing up his glasses. "Punctuality's in the code." He handed her the cup, their fingers brushing, and a spark shot through him like the first time they'd touched in Roxbury. Her skin was warm, her nails still that deep burgundy, and the scent of jasmine clung to her, cutting through the airport's sterile air. Clara sipped the coffee, her eyes narrowing playfully. "No sugar? Just how I like it. You're learning Seattle. Now let's talk strategy. Your family's expecting a love story and we gotta sell it. How'd we meet?" Spill Elliot hesitated, his rehearsed script feeling flimsy under her gaze. At a tech conference." "You were there for flowers," she snorted, nearly choking on her coffee. "A tech conference, boring as hell. Nobody falls in love over PowerPoint slides." She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Here's the real story. I was reciting poetry at a Boston market. You crashed into my flowers and I kissed you to teach you a lesson. Very rom-com. Very us." Elliot's face burned, the memory of that kiss flooding back her lips. The neon lights, the pulse of soul music. "That's not far from the truth," he mumbled, and Clara's laugh rang out, drawing glances from nearby travelers. "Exactly," she said, nudging his arm. "Stick with me, Harper. I'll make you look good." They boarded the flight to Charleston, finding seats by the window in a half-empty cabin. The plane hummed and sunlight streamed through the glass, casting golden patches across Clara's coat. She pulled out a notebook, its pages filled with sketches of flowers and scribbled poems, and a pencil topped with a tiny bee. "All right, family rundown," she said, doodling a magnolia. "Who's gonna grill me about wedding plans and who's gonna challenge me to a drinking game?" Elliot opened his phone, pulling up a note titled Harper Reunion, Key Info. My mom. Margaret loves asking questions. She'll want your life story, Sarah. My sister is hosting and will probably adopt you. Cousin Jake, 25, might dare you to do something dumb like a dance-off. And Dad, Henry, will rope you into a poetry debate. Clara's eyes sparkled, her pencil pausing. A poetry debate. Oh, I'm in. Your dad's about to get schooled by Audre Lorde, quotes. She glanced at his phone, her lips twitching. You made a file, Harper. You're a national treasure. He blushed, shoving the phone in his pocket. I like to be prepared. Prepared's cute, she said, leaning back, her beanie slipping slightly. But love's messy. You can't code your way through it. Her voice softened, and for a moment her eyes held something deeper. Vulnerability, maybe, or a question she wasn't ready to ask. The plane climbed, and Elliot stole glances at her, the sunlight catching the curve of her cheek. He wanted to ask about her shop, her poetry, the mother she'd mentioned in passing at the Blue Note. But he didn't know where to start. Instead, he said, Tell me about Soul Blossom. Why flowers? Clara's face lit up, but there was a shadow in her eyes. My mom started it. She was a poet, a dreamer, loved Jasmine and Maya Angelou. When she got sick, I took over to keep her dream alive, but it's hard. Bills pile up and I'm no good at the business side. That's why I do the event gigs. She paused, her fingers tracing the B on her pencil. Sometimes I wonder if I'm failing her. Elliot was quiet, moved by her honesty. You're not failing, he said finally. You're keeping her alive in every bouquet, every poem. That's real. She looked at him, her smile soft but guarded. Careful, Harper. You're starting to sound like you care. Her words were teasing, but her eyes searched his, and the air between them thickened, charged with unspoken possibilities. As the plane leveled off, a patch of turbulence shook the cabin, and Clara's hand instinctively grabbed his. Her touch was warm, her fingers lacing through his, and Elliot's breath caught. The turbulence passed, but she didn't let go, her thumb brushing lightly over his knuckles, sending a slow burn through him. The sunlight shifted, painting her curls in shades of amber, and her jasmine scent filled the space, mingling with the recycled air. Her breath was steady, but her eyes flicked to his, and for a heartbeat, he thought she might lean closer. Sorry, she murmured, pulling her hand back, but her voice was husky, and the space where her touch had been felt empty. Didn't mean to get clingy. You're not, he said too quickly, his face warm. I mean, it's fine. I'm not great with turbulence either. He wanted to say more, to tell her how her touch made him feel alive, but the words tangled in his throat. Clara smiled, tucking a curl behind her ear. We'll work on that. Harper, gotta get you ready for Charleston. She turned to her notebook, but the moment lingered a quiet promise in the hum of the plane. Later, as they waited at Charleston's airport, the low-country air heavy with salt and magnolia, Elliot's phone buzzed with a text from Zora, Clara's friend from Roxbury. He'd only met her briefly at the Blue Note, but her message was sharp. Clara's got a big heart. Seattle, don't play with it. She's been through enough. The words hit like a warning shot, and Elliot glanced at Clara, who was adjusting her beanie, oblivious. He didn't know her full story, but Zora's message stirred a flicker of doubt. Was he just a job to her, or was the spark he felt her kiss her touch real? Clara caught his eye, her smile playful. What's with the face, Harper? You look like you're debugging a crash. Just family stuff, he lied, pocketing his phone. You ready for the Harpers? Born ready, she said, wheeling her suitcase forward. But you gotta keep up with me. She bumped his shoulder, her jasmine scent lingering, and Elliot's doubt wavered. Transaction or not? Clara was pulling him into her orbit, and he wasn't sure he wanted to escape. The rental car waited outside, and as they drove toward the Harper family farm, the Charleston skyline faded into marshes and magnolia trees. Clara rolled down the window, letting the breeze tangle her curls, and hummed a snatch of Nina Simone's Feeling Good. Elliot stole glances, his hands tight on the wheel. This was supposed to be simple. 3 days, a fake girlfriend, no complications. But Clara's voice, her warmth, her everything was rewriting his plan. At a stoplight, she turned to him, her eyes glinting under the setting sun. All right, Harper, first rule of fake dating. You gotta look at me like I'm the only one in the room. Try it. He blinked, his throat dry. Now, she said, leaning closer, her coat brushing his arm. The light turned red, bathing them in a warm glow, and Elliot turned to her, trying to summon something romantic. His gaze traced her face, her full lips, her deep eyes, the curls slipping over her cheek. For a moment, he wasn't faking it. He saw her, really saw her, and his heart stumbled. Clara burst out laughing, covering her mouth. Oh, Harper, that was adorable, like a puppy trying to flirt. We'll work on it. She patted his arm, her touch lingering, and the light turned green. Elliot drove on, his face burning, but a smile tugged at his lips. Clara was trouble. Beautiful, soulful trouble, and he was already in too deep. They pulled up to the Harper farm as dusk settled the sky, a bruise of purple and gold. The farmhouse glowed with string lights, magnolia trees lining the drive, their scent heavy in the air. Sarah Elliot's sister waved from the porch, her blonde hair tied back, an apron dusted with flour. Elliot, you made it. Her eyes landed on Clara, widening with delight. And you must be the mystery girl. Come here, let me hug you. Clara grinned, stepping out of the car, her coat catching the breeze. Sarah, right? This place is straight out of a dream. She hugged Sarah like an old friend, her warmth infectious, and Elliot watched his chest tightening. This was it, the moment Clara had to sell the lie. But as she laughed with Sarah, her jasmine scent mingling with the low-country air, he wondered if the lie was his own. He wasn't pretending anymore. Inside the farmhouse was a chaos of Harper energy kids, running aunts gossiping, and his mother, Margaret, eyeing Clara like a detective. Elliot braced himself, but Clara was already charming them, her voice weaving stories of Boston and flowers. He stood back, the daisy still in his pocket, and felt a truth he couldn't ignore. Clara Bennett wasn't just a hired companion. She was rewriting his world, and Charleston was only the beginning. The Harper family farm in Charleston, South Carolina, was a postcard of low-country autumn magnolia trees draped in Spanish moss. Lined the gravel drive, their creamy blossoms scenting the air with a sweetness that mingled with wood smoke from a distant bonfire. The farmhouse glowed under string lights, its wraparound porch alive with laughter, clinking glasses, and the strum of a banjo from a local band. Inside, the chaos of the Harper clan unfolded, kids chasing a golden retriever named Grit's aunts, swapping gossip over sweet tea, and Elliot Harper's mother, Margaret, presiding over it all like a benevolent queen. Elliot stood near this porch railing, clutching a glass of lemonade. He hadn't touched his scarf, still tied with the clumsiness of a man who'd trusted a YouTube tutorial. His glasses fogged slightly in the humid air, but his eyes were fixed on Clara Bennett, who was already the center of the reunion's orbit. She moved through the crowd like she'd been a Harper forever. Her burgundy coat swapped for a cream sweater that hugged her curves, her curls bouncing as she laughed with Sarah Elliot's sister. Clara's warmth, her soul lit up the room, and Elliot felt a twist in his chest, half awe, half panic. This was supposed to be a transaction, a 3-day act to fend off his family's matchmaking. But Clara wasn't acting. She was real, and he was falling fast. Elliot! You're gonna stand there like a lamppost all night," Sarah called, wiping flour from her apron as she carried a tray of cornbread. "Your girl's stealing the show. Mom's already planning your wedding." Elliot blushed, pushing up his glasses. She's just doing her job," Sarah snorted, nudging him. "Job my ass. She's got you smiling like you forgot how to frown." "Don't screw this up, little brother." She winked and disappeared into the kitchen, leaving Elliot with a sinking feeling. Clara was selling the lie too well, and he was buying it. Clara, meanwhile, was in her element. She knelt beside a gaggle of Harper kids, teaching them to weave magnolia leaves into crowns, her voice rich with the cadence of a poet. "See you twist it like this," she said, her fingers deft. "And you're royalty." The kids giggled, hanging on her every word, and even Henry Elliot's dad leaned in his crossword book, forgotten. "You know any poetry about flowers, Clara?" he asked, his eyes twinkling. "Oh, Mr. Harper, you're speaking my language," Clara said, standing to recite a snippet of Audre Lorde. "I have been woman for a long time. Beware my smile. I am treacherous with old magic." Her voice was a melody weaving through the banjo's twang, and the room fell quiet, captivated. Elliot watched his lemonade glass sweating in his hand and felt like she was reciting to him alone. Margaret, perched on a rocking chair, set down her knitting, her sharp eyes studying Clara. "You're a keeper, Clara. Where'd my son find you? He's not exactly Mr. Charisma." Clara laughed, glancing at Elliot with a mischievous glint. "Oh, he's got his charms. We met when he crashed into my flowers at a Boston market. I kissed him to teach him a lesson. And well, here we are." She bumped Elliot's arm, her touch light but electric, and the room erupted in chuckles. Elliot's face burned, but he couldn't help the smile tugging at his lips. She was making him look good, better than he deserved. "Sounds like a story," Margaret said, her tone warm but probing. "You two make a fine pair. Don't let him hide behind that laptop, Clara." "Never," Clara said, winking at Elliot, and his heart did that annoying flip again. She was too good at this, too perfect. And the lie felt heavier, with every laugh she drew from his family. Dinner was a riot of low-country flavors, shrimp and grits, collard greens, and Margaret's famous buttermilk pie. Clara blended in seamlessly, swapping stories with Jake Elliot's Instagram-obsessed cousin about ridiculous clients. This one guy wanted a bouquet shaped like a motorcycle, she said, her hands animating the tale. "Took me 3 days and he still complained it wasn't revy enough." Jake laughed, filming her on his phone. "That's going viral. Clara, you're a legend." He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "So you and Elliot real deal, or what? He's not exactly a ladies' man." Clara's smile didn't falter, but her eyes flicked to Elliot, a question in them. "Oh, he's got layers," she said, her voice smooth. "You just gotta peel 'em back." She squeezed Elliot's hand under the table, her fingers warm, and he nearly dropped his fork. The touch was part of the act, he told himself, but it felt like a promise, and his pulse raced. As the night wore on, the Harpers spilled into the backyard for a traditional low-country dance, the band striking up a lively two-step. Clara was in the thick of it, twirling kids and charming aunts, her laughter ringing like a bell. Elliot tried to slip away, mumbling about checking emails, but Clara caught his arm, her grip firm. "Nope, Harper. You owe me a dance." "I don't dance," he protested, his voice tight. "I'll step on your feet. I'm like a walking bug in the system." Her eyes sparkled under the string lights. "Then step on 'em. My boots are tough." She pulled him into the circle, ignoring his stiffness, and the music swept them up. Elliot stumbled, his movements jerky, but Clara guided him, her hands on his shoulders, her body swaying close. The lights cast her in a golden glow, her curls bouncing, and the scent of magnolia and jasmine wrapped around him, intoxicating. Her breath brushed his ear as she whispered, "Relax, Harper. Let me lead." For a moment he did. His hands found her waist, tentative at first, then firmer, and they moved together not perfectly, but real. The world faded. The music, the crowd, the lie, and it was just them swaying under the Charleston sky. Clara's laugh was soft. Her eyes locked on his, and Elliot felt something shift, like a line of code finally compiling. Then trouble walked in, sharp and unexpected, like a glitch in the matrix. Vivian, a family friend and Elliot's old college acquaintance, swept into the backyard, her blonde hair sleek and her dress screaming money. She was all charm and confidence, kissing cheeks and handing out compliments, but her eyes landed on Elliot with a predatory glint. Elliot Harper still hiding behind those glasses. She purred, ignoring Clara. "You owe me a dance, for old time's sake." Elliot froze his hands, dropping from Clara's waist. "Vivian, good to see you," he said, his voice flat. Clara's smile tightened, but she stepped back, gesturing to the dance floor. "Go ahead, Harper. I'll grab some pie." Before he could protest, Vivian pulled him away, her perfume sharp and synthetic compared to Clara's jasmine. As they danced, she leaned close, her voice low. "Your new girl's cute, but she's not exactly Harper material, is she? You need someone who fits in your world." Elliot. Elliot stiffened, pulling back. "Clara fits just fine," he said, his tone sharper than intended. He glanced at Clara, who was chatting with Sarah by the dessert table, but her posture was tense, her eyes avoiding his. Vivian's words stung, and he hated that they echoed the doubt Zora had planted in that text. Was Clara out of place here, or was he the one who didn't belong in her world? The band slowed to a ballad, and Clara slipped away from the crowd, heading toward the magnolia garden at the edge of the property. Elliot excused himself from Vivian, his heart pounding, and followed her. The garden was quiet, bathed in silver moonlight, the magnolias glowing like ghosts. Clara stood by a tree, her sweater catching the breeze, her arms crossed. "Hey," he said, approaching cautiously. "You okay?" She turned, her smile forced. "Just needed air. Your family's great, Harper, but it's a lot." Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of hurt. "That Vivian, she's got history with you." "Huh?" Elliot shook his head, stepping closer. "Ancient history. She's just... Vivian likes to stir things up." Clara's laugh was brittle. "Stir things up. Yeah, I know the type." She looked away, her fingers tracing a magnolia petal. "Look, I'm doing my job, but I need you to play your part too. If we're selling this, you can't let her make me look like the odd one out." "You're not," he said, his voice firm. You're stealing the show, Clara. My family loves you." He stopped, the words catching in his throat. "I'm falling for you." He couldn't say it. Not yet. Clara's eyes softened. But before she could respond, a new voice cut through the night. "Clara, that you?" A tall man stepped into the garden, his dreadlocks tied back, his presence commanding Isaiah, a Charleston-based soul musician, and, as Elliot would soon learn, Clara's ex-fiancé. His smile was warm but loaded, and Clara's face froze. Her breath catching Isaiah, she said, her voice tight. "What are you doing here?" "Playing the gig," he said, nodding toward the band. "Sarah hired me." "Didn't know you'd be here with someone." His eyes flicked to Elliot, sizing him up, and the air turned heavy, charged with unspoken history. Elliot's stomach twisted. Clara hadn't mentioned an ex, let alone one who looked like he'd stepped out of a music video. "I'm Elliot," he said, extending a hand, but Isaiah's grip was firm, almost a challenge. "Nice to meet you, Isaiah." said his tone cool. "Clara and I go way back, ain't that right?" "See?" Clara's jaw tightened, but she nodded. "Way back. Ancient history." Her words echoed Elliot's earlier ones, but they felt like a lie. And the doubt in Elliot's chest grew sharper. Isaiah lingered his gaze on Clara. "We should catch up. See, for old time's sake." He walked back to the band, leaving a silence that pressed against Elliot's ribs. Clara exhaled, her shoulders slumping. "Sorry about that. Didn't expect him here." "You don't owe me an explanation," Elliot said, but the words felt hollow. He wanted to know, needed to know who Isaiah was to her, what they'd been. But before he could ask, Clara stepped closer, her eyes fierce under the moonlight. "We need to sell this, Harper," she said, her voice low. "Your family's watching and Vivian's circling like a shark. Kiss me. Make it look real." Elliot blinked, his pulse spiking. Now, she said, her hands gripping his jacket. The moonlight painted her in silver, her curls glowing, and the scent of magnolia and jasmine enveloped him. He leaned in, hesitant at first, but her lips met his, soft and urgent, and the world dissolved. The kiss was slow, deliberate, her hands sliding to his neck, her fingers brushing his skin, sending heat through him. Her breath was warm, tasting of buttermilk pie and something uniquely. Clara and Elliot's hands found her waist, pulling her closer. The night hummed crickets win their heartbeats, and for a moment it wasn't an act. It was real, raw, and terrifying. She pulled back, her eyes searching his, her breath uneven. "Good enough," she whispered, but her voice trembled, and Elliot knew she'd felt it too. "More than enough," he said, his voice rough. He wanted to kiss her again, to tell her this wasn't just a show. But the band struck up a new song and voices called from the house. Clara stepped back, her smile shaky. "Back to work, Harper." She walked toward the party, her sweater swaying, but Elliot stayed rooted, the taste of her lips lingering like a song. He couldn't shake Isaiah's arrival. Vivian's barbs and Clara's guarded heart were glitches in his plan, and as the moonlight faded, Elliot realized this reunion was no longer about surviving his family. It was about surviving Clara, and the truth he couldn't ignore. The Miami night pulsed with heat and rhythm, the Wynwood Arts District alive with color and chaos. Murals splashed across warehouse walls, vibrant pinks, blues, and yellows, lit by neon signs, and the flash of Instagram cameras. The air carried the tang of salt from the nearby ocean, mixed with the spice of arepas from food trucks parked along the street. The Wynwood Art Walk, a monthly festival of creativity, drew a crowd of artists, hipsters, and tourists, their voices blending with the thump of reggaeton from a nearby DJ. At the heart of it, Clara Bennett stood out like a masterpiece, her curls catching the neon glow, her deep green dress swaying as she examined a canvas at an outdoor gallery. Elliot Harper watched her from a few feet away, his hands stuffed in his pockets, his scarf abandoned in the Miami heat. He'd swapped his usual blazer for a linen shirt, but he still felt out of place, like a line of code in a painting. Inviting Clara to Miami was a gamble, a chance to see her outside the Harper family's orbit, away from the lie they were selling. After their kiss in the magnolia garden under Charleston's moonlight, Elliot couldn't shake the truth. He wasn't pretending anymore. Clara was unraveling him petal by petal, and he'd used the excuse of a flower-themed art festival to bring her here, hoping to understand what was real between them. Clara turned, catching his eye, and her smile was a spark in the humid night. "Harper, you gonna stand there staring or come look at this?" She gestured to a painting of a woman surrounded by jasmine vines, her expression fierce yet tender. "Reminds me of my mom. She loved flowers and fighting for what mattered." Elliot stepped closer, the gravel crunching under his shoes. "It's beautiful," he said. but his eyes were on Clara, her face softened by the memory. "You miss her, don't you?" "Every day." Clara set her voice low, almost lost in the festival's din. "She's why I keep Soul Blossom going, even when it's drowning me in bills. It's her dream, not mine. But it's all I've got of her." She paused, her fingers brushing the edge of the canvas. "What about you, Harper? What's your dream outside that tech empire?" Elliot hesitated, unused to being asked about himself. "I used to want to be an astronomer. Loved stars, the math of it all. But life happened. Work, divorce, responsibility, dreams got shelved." He shrugged, but Clara's gaze held him steady and searching. "Stars are still up there," she said, pointing to the Miami sky barely visible through the city's glow. "Maybe you just need someone to remind you to look up." Her smile was gentle, but her words hit like a reboot, stirring something he'd buried years ago. They wandered through the festival, Clara pausing at stalls to admire sculptures or chat with artists, her energy infectious. She bought a small print of a black daisy, tucking it into her bag with a grin. "For the shop," she said. But Elliot suspected it was for him, a silent echo of the daisy she'd given him in Boston. The night felt lighter with her, like he could breathe deeper, and he wondered if this was what falling in love felt like, a slow, beautiful crash. As the festival wound down, Clara grabbed his hand, pulling him toward a nearby bar, blasting salsa music. "Come on, Harper. You owe me a dance, and Miami's not Charleston. No excuses." Her laugh was a melody, and Elliot followed helpless against her pull. The Bar La Noche was a riot of color and sound, its walls painted with tropical murals, its dance floor packed with couples moving to a frenetic beat. Red and gold lights pulsed, casting Clara in a warm glow as she led him to the center. "Salsa's easy," she said, placing his hands on her hips. "Just feel the rhythm." Her dress clung to her curves, and the heat of her skin through the thin fabric sent a jolt through him. The music was relentless: drums, trumpets, a singer's sultry voice, and Clara moved like she was born for it, her hips swaying, her curls bouncing. Elliot tried to keep up his steps, clumsy, but Clara's hands guided him, her laughter softening his awkwardness. "You're not that bad," she teased, her breath brushing his ear, warm and teasing. The lights dimmed, the song slowing to a sensual ballad, and Clara pressed closer, her body aligning with his. Her hands slid to his shoulders, her fingers brushing the back of his neck, and Elliot's pulse roared, drowning out the music. Her jasmine scent mixed with the bar's smoky air, and her eyes dark and endless, locked on his. "You're getting the hang of it, Harper," she murmured, her voice low, vibrating through him. Her lips were inches away, and the air between them crackled, charged with the memory of their Charleston kiss. Elliot's hands tightened on her hips, pulling her closer, and for a moment the world was just them. Red lights, salsa drums, their breaths mingling. He didn't plan it. One second they were dancing, the next he was kissing her, his lips crashing into hers with a hunger he didn't know he had. The kiss was fire, deep, urgent, her mouth soft and yielding, tasting of rum and jasmine. Her hands gripped his shirt, pulling him closer, and her body pressed against his, warm and alive. The music pulsed, the drums matching their heartbeats, and Elliot felt like he was falling, spiraling into her. Her breath hitched a soft sound that sent heat curling through him, and when they finally pulled apart, her eyes were wide, her lips parted. "Damn, Harper," she whispered, her voice husky, a smile tugging at her lips. "That wasn't in the contract." He laughed, breathless, his forehead resting against hers. "I'm improvising." Her jasmine scent enveloped him, and the red lights painted her skin in shades of fire. For a moment he thought she'd kiss him again, but she stepped back, her smile faltering. "This isn't fake anymore, is it?" she said, her voice barely audible over the music. Before he could answer, her phone buzzed and she glanced at it, her face paling. "Oh no. What's wrong?" Elliot asked, his heart still racing from the kiss. Clara showed him the screen, an Instagram post from Jake, his cousin, with a screenshot of Soul Blossom Events' website. The caption read, "Found this gem while digging Clara's A-Pro at playing girlfriend. Harper reunion. Spill." Comments flooded in, some joking, others curious, and Elliot's stomach dropped. The lie was out. Sarah just texted. Clara said, her voice tight. "She's pissed. Thinks we played them." She looked at him, her eyes a mix of panic and guilt. "I didn't mean for this to blow up, Elliot. I was just trying to help." "It's not your fault," he said, but his mind was reeling. His family trusted him, and he'd let them believe a fantasy. Worse, he'd let Clara believe this was just a job when it was so much more. The bar felt suffocating now, the music too loud, the lights too bright. Clara stepped outside, and Elliot followed the Miami night wrapping around them. They stood on the sidewalk, the ocean's hum in the distance, the neon signs casting her in a kaleidoscope of colors. "I need to fix this," she said. Her arms crossed. "I'll talk to Sarah. Explain. It was my idea." "No." Elliot cut in, his voice firm. "This is on me. I hired you. I should have been honest from the start." He paused, his throat tight. "But Clara, that kiss, it wasn't a lie." "Not for me." Her eyes searched his, and for a moment he thought she'd close the distance, but she shook her head. "You don't get it, Harper. I've been here before, falling for someone, believing it's real, then watching it crash. I walked away from Isaiah because I was scared of failing at love. I can't do that again." Her voice broke, and Elliot's chest ached at the vulnerability in her words. "Clara," he said, stepping closer. "I'm not him. I'm not going anywhere." He reached for her hand, but she pulled back, her smile sad. "I need time," she said, turning toward the beach. "I'll meet you at the hotel tomorrow. We'll figure out how to face your family." She walked away, her dress swaying, and Elliot stood frozen, the taste of her kiss lingering like a ghost. The next morning, Elliot sat in their hotel room overlooking South Beach, the ocean sparkling under a relentless sun. Clara's bag was still there, her jasmine stem tucked into the strap, but she'd gone for a walk, leaving a note. "Need to clear my head. Back soon." His phone buzzed with texts from Sarah Elliott. "What the hell? You hired her," and a voicemail from Margaret, her voice more hurt than angry. "Son, I just want you to be happy. Why the charade?" He opened his laptop, searching for ways to fix this, but his mind was on Clara, her laugh, her poetry, the way she'd kissed him like she meant it. He'd come to Miami to find clarity, but all he'd found was chaos. And yet he didn't regret it. Clara was worth the mess. A knock at the door startled him. Zora, Clara's friend from Roxbury, stood there, her braids pulled back, her expression a mix of concern and steel. "Harper, we need to talk," she said, stepping inside Clara's spiraling. "That Instagram post. It's not just your family. It's her too. She's scared. She's ruined everything. Your trust, her shop, her heart." Elliot's stomach twisted. "I didn't mean for this to happen. I love her. Zora." The words slipped out raw and true, and he realized he'd known it since Charleston, maybe even Boston. Zora's eyes softened, but her voice was firm. "Then prove it. She's out there on the beach trying to figure out if she can trust you. Don't let her walk away." Elliot grabbed his jacket, his heart pounding. Miami had exposed their lie, but it had also exposed his truth. Clara wasn't just a hired companion or a fleeting spark. She was his star, his chaos, his home. As he headed for the beach, the ocean's roar in his ears. He knew he had to fight for her, not with code or plans, but with the messy, terrifying honesty of love. The Seattle sky was a bruise of gray and gold, the kind of autumn evening where the city felt alive with possibility and secrets. Volunteer Park, nestled in the heart of Capitol Hill, hummed with joggers and dog walkers, its sprawling lawns framed by trees ablaze with red and orange. Elliot Harper stood near the park's conservatory, his breath visible in the chilly air, his scarf finally tied decently, thanks to Clara's teasing lessons in Charleston. His glasses fogged slightly, but his eyes were fixed on the path where Clara Bennett would soon appear, if she showed up at all. Miami had been a disaster. Jake's Instagram post had blown their fake relationship wide open, exposing Clara as a hired companion and shattering the trust of Elliot's family. Worse, it had cracked something in Clara herself, stirring old fears of heartbreak, from her broken engagement to Isaiah. Her confession on the Miami beach that she couldn't risk failing at love again had haunted Elliot for days. He'd flown to Boston, faced Zora's protective wrath, and begged Clara to give him a chance to make things right. Now, back in Seattle, he'd invited his family and Clara to Volunteer Park for a reckoning, a chance to tell the truth, and maybe to keep her in his life. His phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "We're here. Mom's skeptical, but she's listening. Don't screw this up, little brother." Elliot's stomach twisted. Margaret's voicemail from Miami, her voice heavy with disappointment, still echoed in his mind. Why the charade, son? He owed them honesty. But more than that, he owed Clara. She wasn't just a transaction. Not anymore. She was the woman who'd kissed him under neon lights, danced with him in a Charleston garden, and set his world on fire in a Miami bar. He loved her, and today he'd prove it. Clara appeared at the path's end, her burgundy coat, a splash of color against the park's muted tones. Her curls were loose, catching the fading sunlight, and her suitcase trailed behind her, the Audre Lorde sticker glinting. She moved with her usual grace, but her eyes were guarded, her smile tentative. Zora walked beside her, a silent sentinel, her braids swaying as she scanned Elliot with a look that said, "One wrong move, and you're done." "Harper," Clara said, stopping a few feet away, her voice steady but soft. "You got a lot of nerve dragging me across the country after that Miami mess." Elliot swallowed his throat tight. "I know I messed up, Clara, but I'm done hiding. My family's here and I want to tell them the truth about us, about everything. Will you stay?" Her eyes searched his, and for a moment he thought she'd walk away. But Zora nudged her, murmuring, "Hear him out. See. He's trying." Clara nodded, her jaw tight, and followed him to the conservatory where the Harpers waited. Inside, the air was warm, thick with the scent of orchids and damp earth. Margaret sat on a bench, her knitting untouched, her eyes sharp. Sarah stood nearby, arms crossed, while Henry flipped through a poetry anthology, pretending to be unbothered. Jake, the unintentional whistleblower, slouched against a palm, his phone mercifully off. The glass walls of the conservatory reflected the golden dusk, casting the group in a soft glow, and Elliot felt like he was stepping into a courtroom. "Mom, Sarah, everyone." He began, his voice unsteady. "I owe you an apology. I hired Clara to be my girlfriend for the reunion. I was scared. Scared of your expectations. Scared of being alone again after my divorce. It was a lie, and I'm sorry." He glanced at Clara, her face unreadable. But what started as a job became real. Clara's not just some hired help. She's everything. Margaret's eyes softened, but her voice was firm. Elliot, I didn't raise you to play games with people's hearts. You hurt us, but more importantly, you hurt her. She looked at Clara, her expression warming. You brought light to our family, Clara, hired or not. Why'd you go along with this? Clara stepped forward, her voice steady despite the tension. I needed the money to save my shop. Soul Blossom. It's my mom's legacy, and it's all I have left of her. But I didn't expect to care about you all or him. She glanced at Elliot, her eyes flickering with something raw. I'm sorry for the lie. I never meant to hurt anyone. Sarah sighed, her arms uncrossing. You're too damn likable, Clara. I was mad. But you made my brother smile again. That's worth something. She looked at Elliot, her tone sharp. Fix this, dummy. Henry closed his book. Standing. Clara, you quoted Audre Lorde like a pro. That's no lie. You're welcome back anytime, fake girlfriend or not. He winked, and Clara's lips twitched, a small smile breaking through. Margaret stood, pulling Clara into a hug. You're real to us, hired or not. Stay for dinner at least. Let's start over. Clara nodded, her eyes glistening, but she avoided Elliot's gaze, and his heart sank. The Harpers forgave her, but would she forgive him? As the family headed to Sarah's Seattle rental for dinner, Clara lingered in the conservatory, staring at a jasmine vine. Elliot stayed back, his hands in his pockets. Clara, can we talk? She turned, her smile weary. You've done a lot of talking. Harper, what's left? He stepped closer, the orchid scent heavy around them. I meant what I said. You're everything. I don't care about the contract or what anyone thinks. I love you. The words spilled out raw and unfiltered, and Clara's breath caught her eyes wide. Don't say that just to fix this, she said, her voice trembling. I've heard I love you before, and it didn't last. I walked away from Isaiah because I was scared of failing. I'm scared now, Elliot. He reached for her hand, and this time she didn't pull away. Her fingers were warm, her burgundy nails catching the light, and the touch grounded him. I'm scared too, he admitted. I've spent years hiding behind code, avoiding messes. But you're the mess I want. Clara, let me prove it. She looked at him, her eyes searching, and the conservatory seemed to hold its breath. Then slowly she nodded. Okay, Harper. Prove it, but I'm not making it easy. He laughed, relief flooding him. I wouldn't expect anything less. That night, Elliot invited Clara to his penthouse in downtown Seattle, a sleek space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Puget Sound. The city sparkled below its lights, reflecting on the water, and the air carried the faint salt of the sea. Clara stood by the window, her coat draped over a chair, her green dress from Miami catching the silver glow. Elliot poured 2 glasses of wine, his hands unsteady, and joined her. The silence between them charged with possibility. You live like a tech king, she said, her voice teasing but soft. This view's almost as good as a Boston sunset. Almost, he said, handing her a glass. Their fingers brushed and the spark was instant. A memory of every touch they'd shared. Boston's neon, Charleston's moonlight, Miami's fire. Clara. I'm sorry for Miami. For everything. I should have told my family the truth from the start. She sipped her wine, her eyes on the water. I'm not blameless, Harper. I played the part too well. Got caught up in it, in you. She turned to him, her gaze steady. But I'm here. That's gotta count for something. It counts for everything, he said. Stepping closer, the city lights painted her in shades of silver, her curls framing her face, and the scent of jasmine clung to her, mixing with the salt air. Can I fix your scarf? He asked. A playful nod to their old joke, though she wasn't wearing one. Clara laughed, setting her glass down. Go for it, tech guy. She stepped into his space, her hands resting on his chest, and Elliot's pulse roared. His fingers brushed her neck, lingering where a scarf would have been, and her breath hitched, her eyes locking on his. The world narrowed. City lights, distant waves, their heartbeats, and he kissed her slow and deep, like a promise kept. Her lips were soft, warm tasting of wine and jasmine, and her hands slid to his neck, pulling him closer. The kiss was a homecoming, a reclaiming her body, pressing against his alive and real. His hands found her waist, tracing the curve of her dress, and her fingers tangled in his hair. A soft moan escaping her that sent heat through him. The sound of waves outside mingled with their breaths, and the silver light bathed them, making the moment feel eternal. When they pulled apart, Clara's eyes were bright, her smile radiant. "You're getting good at this, Harper," she whispered, her voice husky. "You're a hell of a teacher," he said, his forehead resting against hers. They stood there wrapped in each other, the city a silent witness to their truth. The next morning, trouble struck. Elliot woke to a news alert. Tech CEO, Elliot Harper, hires companion for family reunion sources. Say Vivian. The family friend with a vendetta had leaked the story to a Seattle tabloid complete with screenshots of Soul Blossom events. The article was vicious, painting Clara as a gold digger and Elliot as a fool. His phone buzzed with messages from his board demanding a response, and Sarah's text was blunt. "Vivian's a snake. Fix this, or Clara's gonna get hurt." Elliot found Clara in the penthouse kitchen sipping coffee, her face pale as she scrolled through the article. "They're calling me a hustler," she said, her voice flat, "saying I played you to save my shop. I've dealt with crap like this before. People assuming I don't belong because I'm black, because I'm not from your world. But this, it hurts." Elliot knelt beside her, his hand on hers. "I'm so sorry, Clara. This is my fault, but I'm not letting them tear you down. We'll fix this together." She looked at him, her eyes fierce despite the pain. "I'm not running, Harper, but I need you to fight for us, not just with words." He nodded, a plan forming. "I will, starting today." That afternoon, Elliot held a press conference at his company's headquarters, a glass tower overlooking the Sound. Clara stood beside him, her green dress a quiet defiance, her curls pulled back. The room was packed with reporters, their cameras flashing, and Elliot's heart pounded. But her hand in his was an anchor. "I hired Clara Bennett as a companion for my family's reunion," he said, his voice steady. "It was a mistake, born of fear and pressure. But what I found with her is real. She's not a hustler or a prop. She's a poet, a florist, a woman who's taught me what love means. I love her, and I'm proud to stand by her." The room erupted in questions, but Clara stepped forward, her voice cutting through. "I'm Clara Bennett, and I run Soul Blossom in Boston. I took the job to save my mother's legacy, but I stayed because of him." She squeezed Elliot's hand, her smile fierce. "We're not perfect, but we're real, and that's enough." The press conference ended, and as they left, Aisha, a Seattle community activist, and Clara's friend pulled them aside. "You two did good," she said, her braids swaying. "But Vivian's not done. Watch your back." Elliot looked at Clara, her face lit by the tower's glass walls, and knew Aisha was right. The fight wasn't over, but with Clara by his side, he felt ready. They walked into the Seattle dusk hand in hand, the city's lights a promise of a future they'd build together, no matter the cost. The Charleston autumn was a symphony of gold and crimson. The Harper family farm transformed into a vision of love and legacy. Magnolia trees, their creamy blossoms heavy with scent, framed a sprawling lawn where white linen tables stood adorned with jars of jasmine and black daisies. Clara Bennett's signature. String lights twinkled overhead, casting a warm glow, and a local folk band played soft tunes, their banjo and fiddle weaving through the low-country air. 5 years after a kiss in a Boston market sparked an improbable romance. Elliot Harper and Clara Bennett were getting married. Their story a testament to the truth that love, even born from a lie, could become the realest thing in the world. Elliot stood by a wooden ceremony arch draped in vines, his navy suit crisp, his scarf tied perfectly, a skill Clara had taught him, with laughter and patience. At 47, he was no longer the awkward CEO hiding behind code, but a man who'd learned to live with his heart open. His glasses caught the late afternoon sun, and his hand fidgeted with the silver ring in his pocket, his heart pounding like it had the first time Clara kissed him. The crowd, Harper's, Boston friends, and Clara's Roxbury community buzzed with anticipation, but Elliot's world narrowed to the leaf-strewn aisle where she would soon appear. Sarah, his sister, and unofficial wedding planner darted by, adjusting his tie with a grin. "Relax, little brother. Clara's not running. She even loves that fish of yours. Steve." She winked, her blonde hair tied back, and Elliot managed a shaky smile. Steve, the pet fish, was back in Seattle, but Clara's affection for him was one of the million reasons Elliot loved her. Margaret. His mother sat in the front row, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. "My boy found his light," she whispered to Henry, who nodded, clutching a poetry anthology like a talisman. Jake, now 30 and still an Instagram fiend, was filming Promising to Make, Harper wedding trend. The air smelled of magnolia, jasmine, and roasted pecans from the reception tables, and Elliot felt a surge of gratitude for his family, for this moment for her. The band shifted to a gentle melody, and Clara appeared a vision that stole Elliot's breath. Her ivory gown with its sheer lace overlay shimmered in the sunlight, and she held a bouquet of jasmine and red maple leaves, a nod to their chaotic beginning. Her curls were loose, dotted with tiny daisies, and her smile, radiant, unguarded, lit up the entire farm. At 45, Clara was no young dreamer, but her strength, her soul made her timeless. She walked alone, her steps confident, her eyes locked on Elliot, and he forgot how to blink, forgot everything but her. When she reached him, she leaned close, her jasmine scent wrapping around him, and whispered, "Don't drop the ring, Harper. I know you practiced." Her voice was teasing, but her eyes were soft, and Elliot's laugh was shaky. His hand finding hers, her touch was warm, grounding, and the world felt right. The officiant, a Charleston pastor and old family friend, opened with a chuckle. "I hear these two met, thanks to a spilled bouquet and a bold kiss. Who'd have thought a lie could lead to this truth?" Laughter rippled through the crowd, and Clara squeezed Elliot's hand, her smile a shared secret. Their vows were simple, heartfelt. Clara spoke first, her voice clear, her eyes gleaming. "Elliot, you were a glitch in my system, crashing into my flowers and my heart. You taught me to dream again, to paint my life in colors I'd forgotten. I promised to keep you laughing, to remind you to stargaze and to love you, even when you're a nerd about code." The crowd chuckled, and Elliot's throat tightened, her words, a melody he'd carry forever. He took a breath, his voice steady despite the emotion. "Clara, I thought love was a program I'd closed after my divorce. But you rewrote my world, showed me happiness. Doesn't need to be perfect. Just real. You're my star, my chaos, my home. I promise to keep trying to make you smile, even if I embarrass myself doing it." Laughter rose again, and Clara's eyes glistened, her hand tightening in his. They exchanged rings, the silver bands catching the light, and when they kissed, it was soft, deliberate, a seal on their promises. Her lips were warm, tasting of jasmine and sweet tea, and her hands cupped his face, grounding him. Fireworks, small golden sparks, arranged by Sarah, lit the Charleston sky, and the crowd erupted in cheers. Jake shouted, "This is going viral," while Margaret hugged Sarah, tears streaming. The reception was a low-country feast, shrimp and grits, pecan pie, and Clara's favorite buttermilk biscuits. The band played a lively two-step, and Clara insisted everyone dance, pulling Margaret into a spin that earned applause. Elliot, still clumsy, took her hand, and they swayed under the lights, her laughter warming him. "You're getting better, Harper," she teased, her body close, her jasmine scent intoxicating. "Might not need dance lessons after all." "Only if you're the teacher," he said, pulling her closer, and for once he didn't care about the steps. Her smile was enough. Later they slipped away to the magnolia garden, the same spot where they'd kissed under moonlight 5 years ago. The trees glowed silver, the air heavy with their creamy scent, and Clara leaned against a trunk, her bouquet still in hand. "We did it, Harper," she said, her voice soft. "From fake girlfriend to this. What's next?" Elliot threaded his fingers through hers, the ring cool against his skin. "A lifetime of you," he said, his voice low, messy, joyful, full of flowers. He kissed her slow and deep, her body pressing against his, her hands sliding to his neck. The kiss was a vow, a homecoming, her breath warm, her lips tasting of pie and jasmine. The crickets hummed, the magnolias whispered, and their heartbeats wove a quiet rhythm, a promise of forever. When they pulled apart, Clara's eyes were bright, but there was a secret in her smile. "There's something I need to tell you," she said, her voice trembling with joy. She took his hand, placing it on her stomach, and whispered, "We're gonna be a family, Elliot." His breath caught his eyes, stinging with tears. "A baby?" he asked, his voice breaking, and she nodded, her smile radiant. He pulled her into his arms, laughing through the tears, and kissed her again, the world spinning with possibility. The fireworks faded, but their light was in her eyes, and Elliot knew this was the true beginning. 20 years later, Elliot and Clara, now 67 and 65, lived in a Charleston cottage, not far from the Harper farm. The magnolia trees still bloomed, their scent a constant in their lives, and Soul Blossom had grown into a community art center run by their adopted daughter Lila, a 25-year-old painter with Clara's fire and Elliot's quiet determination. Clara still arranged jasmine bouquets, her curls silvered, but her smile unchanged, while Elliot, retired from tech, wrote children's books about stars, a dream Clara had rekindled. Steve, the fish, was long gone, but a golden retriever named Grits too slept by their fireplace, a nod to the Harper legacy. Their home was a tapestry of memories, a framed wedding photo with maple leaves. Clara's first painting after years of fear, a starry low-country sky, and Elliot's old scarf, which Clara teased was an archaeological relic. Lila visited often, her Boston art exhibits a source of pride, and she'd laugh, saying she had the weirdest parents, one who talks to flowers, one who talks to stars. One autumn evening, they sat on their porch under a wool blanket sipping coffee, the air crisp with magnolia and roasted pecans. Clara held a jasmine bouquet, her hand in Elliot's, and said, "You know, I still think about that Boston kiss. If you hadn't crashed into my flowers, we wouldn't be here." Elliot smiled, his glasses thicker now, his hand tracing her fingers. "I'd have found you anyway, Clara. Maybe through a different app, but I'd have found you." He kissed her forehead, her warmth a constant, and they sat in silence, the stars above Charleston winking like old friends. They often returned to the Harper farm, now run by Sarah, for reunions filled with poetry, two steps, and Lila's art. Margaret and Henry had passed, but their love lived in every magnolia, every laugh. Jake, now an influencer with a family, still shared their wedding video, calling it the OG viral love story. Lila teased that her parents were grossly romantic, but her paintings full of jasmine and stars told a different story. That night they lay in their backyard under a blanket counting shooting stars, as Clara's mother once did. "How many autumns left, you think?" Clara asked, her voice soft. Elliot kissed her, his lips brushing hers, a gentle echo of their first kiss. "Enough to keep loving you every day," he said, "and maybe teach me to tie that scarf again." Clara laughed her warmth against him, and they lay there, the low country sky, a canvas of their love, their story born from a lie, a hired companion. A staged romance had become the truest thing they knew. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, built on honesty, vulnerability, and the courage to choose each other. From Boston's neon to Charleston's magnolias, they'd learned that love doesn't need a script. It needs heart, and theirs beat as one. Thank you for joining Elliot and Clara's journey from a fake kiss to a forever love. If you believe love can conquer all, hit that like button, share this story, and subscribe to our channel for more heartfelt tales. Tell us in the comments, what's your favorite moment? Let's keep spreading love together.